So recently I did a video series about how each state in the US had a prehistoric animal that was deadly. And I finished that series and got requests for Canada. So I'm doing a little different format for Canada, but still a cool one, arguably. I'm focusing on one little rock formation in Canada called the Burgess Shale. And at the old Burgess Shale, they keep digging up the strangest fossils that I think I've ever seen. Not with my own eyes, but like on the internet. And every fossil dates back to the weirdest time period, in my opinion, the Cambrian period, around 500 million years ago, before the dinosaurs. In fact, before any life was on land. So I'm ranking 13 of the weirdest creatures ever found in the Burgess Shale, in my opinion. From least weird to most weird. Let's start with the Pikaia. This worm-like creature resembled a small eel and grew up to 1.5 inches long, which is kinda big for Cambrian wildlife. Everything was pretty small. It had a notochord running through its body, which would later evolve into a backbone, giving rise to the first vertebrates. Pikaia is essentially the backbone of the backbones. Without Pikaia, we wouldn't have evolved. Odontogryphus. This thing kind of looks like a slug that got smashed by a frying pan. But it was actually a relative of mollusks like octopi and oysters that you see today. It grew up to about 5 inches long, so again, pretty big for Cambrian animals. This is Tegopelte, which was essentially a tiny carpet with tiny legs. It grew up to 11 inches long and scuttled along the seafloor, eating smaller animals. It may look simple, but it had a small digestive system and antennae for detecting prey. And with 50 legs, you probably wouldn't want that scuttling around you. It would give you the creeps. We're getting higher on the weirdness scale now to Morella. At less than 1 inch long, it would be hard to see a Morella, but once you see one, you'll notice how weird it looks. It had an armored head with antennae running down the body. Though its body was small, it consisted of up to 26 segments. Sectocaris. This picture definitely makes it look like a Batman villain, but I mean, that would make a pretty cool Batman villain. This thing was the ancestor of modern arthropods like horseshoe crabs and lobsters. On top of that, its name means holy shrimp. Holy shrimp, is that a good name? It was a predator, though it was only 4 inches long. See how weird things are getting, and we're not even halfway through the list? Growing up to 50 centimeters long, this is the Herdia. It's definitely on the larger side of animals at the time, and was a radiodont, a predatory sea arthropod. This thing would be very weird to run into in the water. I mean, look at it. Look at it. You've probably heard of SpongeBob, who lives in a pineapple under the sea, but this is the pineapple under the sea. For this one, Mother Nature said, what if we take a blob and we add spikes? What a marvelous idea. And we ended up with this, the Wiwaxia. This thing, about the size of your thumb, had spikes for protection against predators, hence the looking like a pineapple thing. And it actually did move, kind of, just like scooted along, moving like one single toe. If you've ever wondered what would happen if a slug decided to go to war, this is essentially what that would look like. This is the Orthroxanchus, and it's basically a slug with spikes and a helmet. Funnily enough, this is an ancestor of the slug, and it's theorized to have evolved from the Wiwaxia, which makes sense from what we just saw. And these things were tiny at only 2 centimeters long. Odoria has been described by many as a swimming taco, and I believe it sure fits that role. At up to 6 inches long, it kind of looked like a fish, but it was actually an arthropod. Its quote-unquote taco shell had small spikes to catch prey and then eat that prey. Anomalocaris means abnormal shrimp, and it definitely earns that name. It's a relative of modern shrimp, and it looked like one too, if, of course, shrimp grew up to the size of a cat and had 2 trunks to grab prey. Anomalocaris was the apex predator of its time and area, dwarfing every other animal around it. We're in the top 3 now with Hallucigenia. At just about 1 inch long, Hallucigenia wasn't the biggest, but what it lacked in size it made up for in complete weirdness. This worm-like animal had spikes on its back and legs beneath it. There were 7 pairs of spines for protection, and it gets its name from the word hallucination. According to some scientists, it had a dream-like quality. Look at this picture, it's clearly plotting someone's demise. Number 2 on our list is the Herpetogaster, a very strange creature indeed. At 4 centimeters long, it looked like a sea cucumber with some extra appendages, enough to give you the creeps. That bottom-facing appendage, apparently called a stolon, is used to keep itself rooted into the ground, while its tentacles filtered out microscopic organisms for it to eat, because it was a filter feeder. And the weirdest, in my opinion, is this, the Opabinia. This little guy just has to be the weirdest for me. At about 3 inches long, it was a predator that had a rather unusual way of hunting. That trunk was used to grab smaller animals and put those animals in its mouth. Now, in reference to its eyes, well, it had 5 of them. Yeah, not something you see every day, perhaps alien content. Well, yeah, that was Canada during the Cambrian period. Life was so strange then that if you traveled back, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was our planet, because you'd probably die of lack of oxygen before telling anything. And we're still discovering new creatures of the Burgess Shale formation, such as Malsura, a small relative of the Anomalocaris that we just described this year in 2025. And it was named after the Japanese word for Mothra. Well, comment what you thought was the weirdest, and be sure to like and subscribe, and try not to be permanently scarred by seeing these creatures.